Every fractional CMO eventually finds themselves in a situation working with a client who does not have the right team to support them. How you handle those situations is so key, because if you step in to fill the gaps, you're suddenly an overpriced contractor who no longer is doing CMO work, so you no longer have the value and authority that you could command at those high ticket rates. Basically, what can happen is your clients will feel like they are massively overpaying you, and they're not wrong. In this episode, I'm going to break down the 3 types of team gaps every fractional CMO will eventually come across, the common mistakes that pull you into the doer seat, and how I solve team gaps without putting on the execution hat myself. I'm also going to show you how you can turn these situations into an excellent revenue generating opportunity for yourself. So let's get into it. Okay, so before we talk about solving team gaps, we first need to talk about what are the 3 team gaps that are most common, because you're going to come across a few different situations. Number 1, your client has no team at all. The CEO is the marketing team, or maybe they have a VA who they said was doing some marketing, but reality is you get in, you thought you did a good job screening your client, but they actually don't have a marketing team. Number 2, a junior team who is actually just not at the level that they need to be to execute on your strategies in the way that's going to get results. So your client might have a team, sometimes a decently big one. Maybe they have contractors, agencies, etc. But the team or part of the team just is not operating at the level that you need them to be to actually get good results. Maybe there's a marketing coordinator who can post content, but it's not being done in a strategic way, so it's not actually driving the results that you need it to. So because the team exists, the client thinks they're set, and on paper they might look like they are, but the work that's actually going to move the business forward is not being done in the way that it needs to be done. So that is a really important gap. And then the last one is the wrong team composition. So they might have a team, they might have a really great team, they're doing their work well, but you're recognizing there's actually a gap on the team for some work or a skill set that nobody has. It just doesn't exist there. So not that it's being done poorly, but no one is doing that work. So depending on what type of gap you're dealing with, you're going to want to approach that situation a little bit differently. So I'm going to walk you through first the 3 most common mistakes that I see and that I have made myself that can quickly take you from a CMO into a marketing manager role or a doer role, which completely devalues you and doesn't allow you to keep earning a CMO rate. So number 1, pretending the gap isn't there. I definitely did that at the beginning when I was just so excited to have clients and really just getting used to this role. And what would happen is I would feel uncomfortable bringing it up. And so I would just try to work with what we had. I didn't want to seem negative. I didn't want to be coming in and be seen as criticizing. But the reality is, as a CMO, as a marketing leader, it's our job to surface these things, because often, and now that I've done this multiple times, the client doesn't know what they don't know. And particularly if they don't have a marketing background, they're not able to see things as clearly as you are. The other thing is that filling these gaps takes time. So the faster you can bring it up to your client, even if it's right away, I will sometimes even mention something on a discovery call or sales call. If you can bring it up and start to seed their mind around what might need to be done to fill that gap, it's just going to get you further out ahead. Okay, mistake number 2, the just this once lie. So I have done this so many times where I'm sitting there thinking, okay, we don't have someone to design this ad, or we don't have someone to write this copy, and we're on a time crunch. And I know that if I just do this, like I know how to do this work. If I just do it, it'll take me 2 minutes, versus solving the bigger problem of filling the role might take days or weeks or months. And the thing with doing something just this once is it is a slippery slope, because you find yourself in this cycle of, oh, just this once. I'm just going to do it just this once, and then just this once. And it becomes this thing where you're stepping in and filling gaps. And there's this saying, death by a thousand cuts. And it really truly is that, where you find yourself suddenly working twice the hours that you should be for your client because you're just stepping in a bunch of places and filling gaps. And again, not only does that devalue you, because copywriting or graphic design or fixing a landing page, none of that stuff is worth CMO rates. So not only does it devalue you, but it pulls away your time. So then your time is booked and busy with you executing on things that you shouldn't be touching. Okay. And mistake number 3, absorbing the client's urgency as your own. So when there is a gap on the team, whether you realize it, your clients realize it, it is never the right time. It's never the right time. There's always a launch coming up, or maybe they're going on maternity leave, or something is going on in their business where it feels like you're under a time crunch. And it can be really tempting to step into that energy with your client and be like, okay, how do we solve this? How do we solve this quickly? And what do we do? And okay, let's just band-aid this right now. But I promise you that is never the right thing to do. Our role as CMOs is to be the voice of reason in the room. And it kind of reminds me of parenting in some ways, where the more work that I learned to do on my nervous system as a parent, and the calmer I was in the room and am, the calmer I can keep my kids, because I'm the driving force. I'm the energy that's leading the room. So I like to be that with my clients too, and say, look, I know that this launch feels really important. I know that XYZ is going on, but if we band-aid this, we are never going to get to a place where you have the right team in place and you have the right systems and infrastructure to run your business properly and to market it properly. So let's take the time, let's do this right, and we'll set you up for success in the future. Then we're not playing leapfrog and constantly having the same issue that we're trying to solve over and over and over. I like to remind them that marketing is a long game. And something I have to tell myself, I tell my team, I tell my clients, is that we make our own timelines. Okay, we're launching July 15th. Well, why? That's what we put in the calendar. Nobody knows that. Or even if they do, we can change it. We get to make our own timelines. And so anything that feels urgent right now can be shifted, rescoped, paused, while we fix the bigger issues that are going to have a positive ripple effect over the long term. All right, so let's talk about how to actually fill the gap when you have a team gap, like some of the ones I mentioned. So there's a few different approaches here, and I'm going to walk you through a few of them, and I'll talk about the pros and cons. Number 1 is to build a subcontractor bench. So what I mean by this is build a team, sort of an extension of you, of vetted agencies and freelancers that you've personally worked with, who you would put your name behind. You would be proud to have them represent you and be an extension of your team. So I'll walk you through how I do this. I have copywriters, designers, I have marketing tech experts, I've got landing page designers, I have various freelancers and agencies who I love. I've worked with them a ton. I know that their integrity is as high as mine. I'm proud to have them represent me, and I know that the way they will show up for the clients is how I would show up for my clients. So what happens is, if we need a scope of work done, and usually this ends up being a one-off, let's say a project-based thing, maybe building out a funnel or setting up a ManyChat flow, I will scope the work, I will get the contractor to quote it, I will mark it up, and then I will pass that on to my clients. So there's a few things here that I want to point out. Non-negotiables. Number 1 is, it is so important that you have worked with these people before, you've seen their work, you know that clients will be happy, because this is your reputation. So I am so particular about who I put under my agency in terms of representing me. Number 2 is, make sure your clients are paying you upfront for the work. And then typically what I do is I pay my subcontractors after they've completed the work. It's a little different with each subcontractor, but that's usually what I do. If you want more information, I go way deeper on subcontractor agreements, payment terms, how to handle subcontractors who kind of go rogue, and everything else you need to know about this. This has been a pretty big line item of revenue for me over the last several years in my business. So all of the details of that are inside Fractional CMO School. Okay, number 2. This is something that I've been testing out this year. I have built out a team of marketing integrators. So an integrator, the way I define it, is a marketing generalist who can come in and execute on a variety of things. And I have tested this rollout this year because I have had a number of clients come my way, and I am kind of insane about vetting clients and making sure I have the right client. But I've had a few clients come my way where things have changed while we've been working together, and they've lost a key team member and they need somebody, and we're usually right in the middle of something. And if you know anything about hiring, that whole process can take time. So I love having someone in my back pocket that I can just bring in on an hourly retainer basis to help fill some gaps in the short term while we're hiring for a role. And sometimes ongoing, depending on the client's business. But essentially how this works is the integrator on my team will come in and they will be on a set hourly retainer. So they might be working 40 hours a month for a client and they're getting a retainer. And that retainer is billed the exact same way I would bill my clients, and it's through my agency, and that integrator is just stepping into the client's business and executing on the work. So there's pros and cons. I have learned so much about having this role. A lot more detail is inside Fractional CMO School, but one thing I will share with you now is that, again, like I said before with subcontractors, it is so important with these team members that you've worked with them before, because with these people that I have on my team, I am so comfortable having them step into my clients' businesses because I know they do great work and I know they really care. Number 3, build an HR partnership. So sometimes the gap actually does require hiring. So whether that is an agency or a contractor, a freelancer, a full-time role, I have an agency partner, just one, but you can have a few. I have an agency partner that I will pull in when we're needing to hire, because as a CMO, my job is not to be an HR coordinator. If you're interested, I recorded an episode about everything I do and don't do as a CMO when it comes to hiring. So I go way deeper there. But what I'm going to focus on right now is partnering with an HR partner or recruiting firm. So again, I always like to bring in someone I've worked with before. If you don't know anybody, I would say network and try to get 1 or 2 people that you can pull in to test. And essentially what I do as a CMO is I'm scoping out what's needed. Like, what is the role? Is it full-time? Is it part-time? I will usually write the job description and I will help define, what does this role look like? Who are we actually looking for? What is our dream candidate? What kind of experience do we want them to have? What's important? What skill sets are really key? And how would I be screening for somebody when I'm looking at applicants? So I share all of that with the HR person, and then they do the work of posting the job description, skimming through all the applicants, bringing any high quality candidates to me, and then I get to help vet and sort and make sure we have the right people. I'm also not doing all of the interviews. So typically what I'd be doing is maybe a final interview depending on the scope that I'm on with the client. And then I would also just help them vet. Like if they're seeing a few people that they like, I would look at them and say, okay, yes to this person for these reasons, no to this person for these reasons. And then I also like to advise on test projects, because I think test projects when you're hiring are so important. Something also that I will mention as a little bit of a side note, I don't run the HR agency that I use through my firm. I'm not presenting them as an extension of me, but I do have a referral partnership. So when I bring them business, I get a referral fee. I think for me that works well because they're an agency on their own. They have their own process, onboarding, etc. And it just feels a little bit cleaner that way. Okay, we've talked about how to solve the gap in a variety of ways that does not include you hopping in and filling the gap. And the last thing I want to share with you, which I think is so important, is that when we're aware of these times when we're working with clients where suddenly something is going outside of scope or outside of the ideal or outside of the norm, for example, this, where, hey, you came in and I thought you had the right team, or maybe I wasn't sure. Now I know there's a problem. The cool thing about this is if you are aware of it, it actually can turn into an additional revenue and scoping opportunity for you if you handle it properly. So I'll give you an example. I have a client right now who I'm working with that needs a few roles on her team, and we actually needed to sit down and strategize around where is the business going, what do we have in marketing and across the business, and what roles are really needed. So that was step 1. And then step 2 was figuring out, okay, now that we know these roles, who are the right people? So job description, and test project, that ideal list of candidates. So I was able to increase my scope from $4,000 per month to $8,000 per month for 3 months, so that I could step in and help solve this team strategy and help get the right people in place. And the big mistake that I made when I first started was I would have just stepped in and done this anyways without charging an additional scope. But now that I have really clear packages and I'm so boundaried around what I do and don't do on a variety of packages, it was so easy for me to say, okay, I can see what you need. I know I can help you with this, but it's outside of scope. So this is what we can do, and give her the choice. And she was all for it because we've had a great time working together so far. I've been able to get great results. So for her to have a little bit more of my time for the next few months while we sort out some pieces of her team that we both know are going to really positively impact the growth of her company was a no-brainer for her. So I think that's a really good example of something where I was working with a client, there was a few team gaps. I could have stepped in and filled them. I could have stepped in and filled the kind of HR hiring piece without charging more. I could have stepped in and filled the hiring piece and done all the HR work, which I didn't. I've brought in an HR partner to support me as well. And what is so important about this is I'm staying in my CMO scope. I'm helping her in the best way that I can. And I'm also increasing my fee because I know my worth and I know that it doesn't do me any good to just serve her more and not charge more. It doesn't make sense. It's just exactly how I'm going to burn out. So to summarize, the 3 mistakes that turn you into a doer. So ignoring the gap, the just this once promise, and the letting the client's sense of urgency drive you into making, probably not the best decisions when it comes to team. And then we talked about ways to actually fill the gap. So building your own subcontractor team, potentially considering an integrator position on your team, and then having an HR partnership. So helping you figure out how to close those gaps with an HR support. And then as I close this out, I want to say a couple of really important things too. The number one way to avoid this situation is to be so clear on what makes a client a fit for a fractional CMO engagement. And I've shared lots of information about that. And I go way deeper in Fractional CMO School. But choosing the right clients is so, so key. And that alone will help you avoid a lot of these sticky situations. And then we also talked about how this can actually be an opportunity for you to increase your scope and actually make more revenue for a short term while you're working with your clients. So if you want the full playbook, absolutely everything around how I've built out my subcontractor team, how I've scaled with my internal team of both CMOs and freelancers and integrators, the language I use to have these kind of conversations with clients, the scope and repricing conversations, absolutely everything I share inside of Fractional CMO School. So the link is below. All right, thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time on CMO School.